So I was at the bookstore earlier today, as many of you know, and there was a massive sale going on. Books, most of them being 70% off. And so I got some really good ones. Importance Being Earnest, for example, The Odyssey, and some other ones as well. Some of them were quite dated, and no one really bought them. But practically all the books were 70% off, and they were just so cheap. So I bought a lot. It's great in a way. But at the same time, it's also very sad and really got me thinking. And for those of you who are in the industry, or for those of you who would like to know a bit about it, it has actually been really hard for the bookstores, not just in Asia, but really around the world, to survive. It has been incredibly difficult to survive. It hasn't been an easy business. It is a very challenging business to get into, running a bookstore, talking about the inventory management and of course dealing with the pandemic. But much more than that, I think what's really been happening has actually been a shift with how people actually consume content. Now, earlier I posted a poll asking if you guys thought reading was dead. Of course, most of you said no. And although reading has not really died per se, if you consider reading to be the consumption of information, textual information, what has actually really happened, just from the insights from my work, but also really looking into the industry, is that the sort of behavior of people, readers, they've substantially changed in the last half a decade. People today, although they read, they're actually reading content in a shorter and shorter form than before. Now, if you consider what a book is, I've mentioned this before in my past interviews, but a book itself, to me, is not so much just about the medium. A book could be in paper, a book can also be in the computer. And of course, the medium of what a book is may change. A book is a long-form content. But what has really changed, despite the medium itself, is the behavior. People today, they no longer really prefer reading long-form content. They prefer shorter form content. Of course, we can think about, for example, the rise of TikTok and its popularity, where in a matter of 15 to 30 seconds, you have to be able to convey information. And as difficult as that sounds, that is what people are used to today in terms of what their attention allows. I mean, there's really so many things out there that are constantly trying to grab our attention. I think as a result, as well as a society as a whole, collectively, our attention spans are actually getting shorter and shorter. And today, to ask us to read something like a book is just asking too much. For example, recently I shared this Vice article about essentially a writer asking people to watch this person share a 2-hour opinion that he has on a certain topic, and because it's worth actually watching it. But again, it is a big ask that we even have to write an article to more or less ask people to please check out the content. And so this is the sort of world that we live in today. Long-form content is no longer really preferred, and it's really hard to get people to get into reading books, whether they are physical or whether they are digital. And it is rather sad because although you could easily read or watch a summary of, let's say, a book or a certain point on a subject online for maybe a minute or less, or maybe, even within 1 minute, the point is reading is not so much just about the efficiency of getting the information across to you. There's something really special about reading a book, and that is the level of introspection that's involved. When you read a book, although it might take longer, maybe an hour to finish a chapter of something, which you could easily see a summarized version online, as you're going through that process of reading, the introspection that's happening in your mind is something that is very unique to reading. That, I think, is something that we are starting to lose sight of. The point of reading is not so much just about getting information across, but also it is very reflective and introspective experience, and that's the thing that we don't really think about. But that's the thing that is getting lost today. And I think there's something really quite perhaps concerning happening on a collective level because of that. Because as we lose the sort of introspection, reflection, what happens to us then as us human beings? How are we operating in the new world as we lose this ability, as we're now just being spoon-fed and more or less quickly fed information? We are losing that faculty that is so important. That is what makes us human, that abstract function, our mental faculty that makes us who we are. And that's the thing that's really concerning to me.